Today I am joined by my client Michael Grunow. Michael is a mindset and mental game coach and personal development expert with expertise in personal growth, stoicism and building self-discipline. He helps his clients to get committed to their goals, build winning processes, and he helps them speed up their progress to success. Michael, I know that you are selective with your time, so I appreciate you joining us here on the podcast today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, John. It's a pleasure. It's exciting, and I'm excited. Let's see what happens.
Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where this conversation goes. Now, in a recent coaching session, you just casually dropped in that while you'd been away on holiday for I think it was 14 days, you'd managed to read 12 books while on your holiday. So for me, I was like, right, we need to talk about that. That would be a great conversation to share with people because some people struggle to read at all. Some people struggle to stay focused or to apply what they learn. And I really wanted to get into how did you do that? How did you read all those books so fast?
The simple answer is speed reading. It's a technique that I learned, I would say, like 10 years ago, roundabout. But I have been really intrigued reader my whole life. Like ever since I remember things, like I was reading books, or like at first books with pictures only, but then quickly like reading books about knights when I was a kid and like being really thrilled about these topics, ancient Romans and all these kind of things. And my mom is a teacher, so like books were big in our family. And then at some point I felt like I want to get faster. There needs to be something more, because my mom, for example, was naturally like kind of a natural speed reader. She was really quick with books, and I wanted to like speed up and like go fast about all of this. And then at some point I stumbled upon speed reading, a concept where you can kind of eliminate some major reading errors that the average person does, and like speed. And the promise was speed up while even increasing your understanding rate. And for me, that sounded like amazing, and that's what I applied last vacation.
So what are some of those errors that many people make while reading that slows them down?
It's three major mistakes. Let's see if I can summarize them. The first one is a narrow looking angle, let's say. Yeah. So we usually go, like when we learn reading, we go letter by letter. It's required, yeah, in order to learn. And then later on, we go usually word by word. And that is fine for kids up until the age of 16, let's say. It's completely normal and fine to read like this. But as adults, we could theoretically learn reading for a second time. And there we could actually, instead of reading word by word, we could chunk words up to like units of words and then read this way. And that's why for the average or for the typical book, I don't look at each word, but I take a look at the beginning, at the middle, and at the end of a line, and I get the whole line. And I don't need to look at each single word. That's one. Yeah. Second one would be subvocalization. That's that you hear the words that you're reading internally, and that is good for complicated words. When I read English text, for example, I need to subvocalize a lot more than when I read German text, because it's more complicated. I don't have it internalized as much. But simple words like and, or, these kind of things, you don't need to subvocalize, because you can chunk them and you get the sense of the whole thing. You don't need to subvocalize each and every word. That's the second one. And third one, maybe slipped my mind. I guess it slipped my mind. Maybe it will. Regression. There we go. Regression. So we tend to jump back because we don't understand. We kind of, everybody experiences that, especially with let's say boring books. We read through a page and then halfway down we recognize, I don't remember anything from this whole page. Then we jump back, read it again. And the concept, or the idea is, if I jump back, if I regress, then I can fully understand what's written there. But in reality, what it creates in our brain is we get confused, because we start a sentence, we read half a sentence, and then we read it again, and it doesn't make sense in the brain. Like, you can't connect the dots. And so it is very tough to overcome this and to work against this internal drive of regressing and reading again. Instead, just keep going. And what's good about, like, especially well-written books is they usually repeat. and so you don't miss anything. And even if you miss, you can make some sense later on. And so yeah, these are the three: subvocalization, narrow angle of reading, let's say, and regression.
So is that sub-vocalization, is that when I'm reading it and I'm doing the narrative in my mind at the same time? So I'm literally reading the words out loud to myself and hearing them in my head.
Yeah, and that is, yeah, that's exactly it. And that is also the reason why, for the typical reader, for the, let's say, untrained reader, you are capped at something like 200 words per minute, maybe 250. And that is the speed of when you read out loud a text. And that is the reason, because you are capped, because you are sub-vocalizing every single word.
And that first point of like reading chunks, so are you like looking at a block of text then rather than just one word at a time?
Yeah.
Like moving across. So I would typically just move across from left to right, but you're looking at an entire block. And you just train yourself to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I followed a German book, and there are many international books, like English books as well, where you have certain exercises, or sometimes you can do like day seminars or like 2-day seminars to learn this technique. It actually goes pretty quickly. Like it took me maybe like 5 to 10 hours of working through this book, and then I practiced it, and I had substantial progress already after 1 or 2 weeks. So I would say like most people can learn this within a few weeks tops, and then you need to practice over time, of course, and need to keep the skill fresh, but you can learn it really quickly. And like the chunking, yes, you need to kind of widen the like your gaze, if that's the right way of saying it, instead of just single words. Like try to see more than the single word, and usually these units, they make sense. And for me it means I just look, I will show it quickly. I will look like this. That's one line, and I see everything. Yeah, and that's feels magic. And it looks like when people observe me, they freak out.
Yeah, I mean, even hearing about
like,
it, sounds like it's some sort of superpower where it doesn't feel really natural. But yeah, I can see how you read a lot quicker with that kind of progress or process, because you're cutting out a lot of the extra stuff you need to do. Do you find with this method or reading so quickly that you do miss any of the book? I know that last point you talk about how we might feel naturally that we want to go back and read it again. Do you find that you're doing less of that with this particular method?
Yeah, you do less of like, but you cut the unnecessary, but you don't miss out. I should say though, obviously you don't need to apply this method with every single reading that you do. If you just read for pleasure, if you read poems or whatever, of course I slow down if I want to, if it gives me more pleasure. But for everything that is reading for information, it should be applied. But I just described the pure method. You combine this with several other techniques and approaches to a book. So this is A to Z reading, right? Like first letter to last letter. But we pair that up with, for example, trying to explore the book at first. Yeah, like look at what's the content of the book, how many pages, like what are the chapters, and you're always seeking like to find signals, to find little pieces of information. Yeah, and so there are several techniques. Like you would like go through like the page of the chapter that you want, like the pages of the chapter you want to read. Like take 5 seconds each page and just scan for like signals of like, okay, what are the major words that I'm seeing in this text. Then you might go for paragraphing. Yeah, just reading the first and the last paragraph, for example, or the first and last sentence of each paragraph. And these are all like, you can layer all these techniques, and like in the end you might not necessarily read too much faster than the average person, because you take several runs at it, let's say, yeah, but the understanding rate goes up tremendously. Yeah. So I read faster and I understand more than the average person, and that is a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, I mean, reading 12 books in 14 days is no easy feat. That's a lot of information to take on board. So really, this is a method that's most useful when it's personal development or it's information, when you're wanting to consume information and knowledge, versus if you're just relaxing, enjoying a casual kind of novel, then you might want to take your time, do it a little bit more differently. How much faster would you say either you've got yourself, if you were to go back to how you were before you learned these methods, or how much faster is it than the average kind of reader?
Yeah, I would say everybody can easily double the reading rate, easily. Like if previously it was 200 to 250 for me personally, and I definitely have 400 when I'm really pushing for it. 500 words per minute is the measure. So that is definitely accomplishable by everybody, I think, while increasing the understanding rate. So in these books or seminars, you usually have understanding tests. So they will quiz you on like what you just read, and like then you will compare it. Like you do a test in the very beginning. How is your understanding rate right now? How quick are you right now? And then you do one at the end and in between, and you can see the progress. Okay. And so I would say, yeah, everybody can double it for sure, while understanding more of the reading. So yeah, that's for sure given. And then like there are some pretty extreme people who can read 1,000 words per minute, 1,500 words per minute. That's definitely, there's a Guinness World Record for something insane, like 2,000-3,000 words or something, or maybe even more. I don't know.
Wow.
Like, and then there are the very exceptional people, like the Rain Man type of people who can literally somehow look at a page and they get the information.
Yeah.
But this is really out of the ordinary.
Yeah, it sounds like on that first point that you're talking about, like what the focus and what how narrow or how wide. Like someone just may have a natural ability to really expand out and see the entire text, and that's where you see. We may have heard of these people. They look like they're just turning pages and taking it all in. That's maybe why that's possible. Whereas previously I wouldn't have thought so. I guess if you couple that with a photographic memory, which is has always been one of my things that I wish I could have. Which inspired me to learn a lot of the memory techniques, like the memory palaces, etc. Then, yeah, that's a really, really amazing combination. So, out of the 12 books that you read, which one would you say is had the? Well, actually, before I ask that question, I'm curious of in taking on so many books. That's a lot of books in a short amount of time. How do you get to apply the knowledge from the books? Because I know a lot of people can consume content and read information, but then ultimately it's not really useful if it's not being put to work. How do you apply what you've learned?
Like in this short time span, you don't. Clearly, like this is about reading a lot of information quickly. Application always takes much more time. I think this is very useful. Like I learned it for university, kind of, right? You are somewhat forced to take in a lot of information and like figure out the gold nuggets in there. And I think that is also the purpose of speed reading, that you, like, if you have information or like books that are so dense that you really need to take in every single line and you really want to apply every single concept in a book, it's like the speed reading will help, but the application still takes months and years. Yeah? So the short answer is I can't apply that quickly. But what I can do is I can take in all this information. I can filter what is truly the essential about all these books, what are my favorite books, and then act accordingly. So like speed reading is just step one, and then other steps follow.
Great. So talking of essential, I know you make a number of book summaries. So you read the book, you take the key parts, you turn it into a summary. And I recently read your book summary of a book called Essentialism by Gary McKeown. And there was a couple of really cool quotes or kind of distinctions that he made in there. I want to share some of those because I think they're really interesting. One was, if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. And saying yes to everything versus saying yes to only the things that really matter. And if it isn't a clear yes, then it's a clear no. I really like that one because it gets people off the fence, gets people really present to what they want, what they don't want. When people make their problem our problem, we aren't helping them, we're enabling them. Once we take their problem for them, all we're doing is taking away their ability to solve it. That was great. And boundaries are a little like the walls of a sandcastle. The second we let one fall over, the rest of them come crashing down. So it's a really good metaphor for boundaries. And that distinction of I have to versus I choose to. It was a really interesting book. It really reminded me of deep work by Cal Newport about really prioritizing in a very busy and confusing world with a lot of opinions and a lot of advice and a lot of information. We look at like taking on 12 books. That's a lot of different information. this book kind of gets down to what's essential. What was your biggest takeaway from the book, and has there been anything that you have applied from this particular book? Because I know that you were speaking highly of it yourself.
Yeah. If I would summarize, it would be less is more or less is better. That's the key takeaway, and summarize the whole book. But one more specific thing that really resonated with me and really made me think and reevaluate it was, like you said it in a short version, if it's not a clear yes, it's a clear no. And I see myself being caught in this idea as well, that it's easy to say no to, or like easier to say no to bad options, to truly bad options. But what about these middling, like kind of good, like borderline really good, but they don't break through to top 10% options where we clearly need to say yes. So these, like, if you put it in percentiles, like 60, 70, like 6th or 7th percentile of options. This is super hard. This is where people struggle. This is where I can totally see myself often just saying yes because, like, I can't really turn this down, right? This sounds too good. And the author claims you need to say no to all of this and just focus on these top 10% and really dial in into them, and then like magic happens and you can really get the most out of things, and you feel you have less of this doubt and like remorse about like commitments that you made at some point, and now you would need to uncommit, but you don't feel great about it. And yeah, streamlining the yes or no process. Maybe that's a term you could use.
Yeah, for sure. And we can rush into a yes, and then ultimately it's not the right thing for us. It can end up costing us hours, days, weeks, or even months and longer if we're committing to things that aren't beneficial for us. But also there's that problem of just sitting on the fence and not making decisions.
Yeah.
Not making a decision is still a decision. It's just more of a passive approach. And I believe it's more useful to have an active approach, being intentional and conscious and making choices about what we want. Do you have any kind of either a framework or a way of knowing what you're prioritizing or what you're focusing on so that you can have a clearer picture of what's a yes for you and what's a no for you when these decisions come up?
I would answer in the following way. What I keep telling my clients as well is, if you don't set a schedule for yourself, other people set your schedule. People sometimes, especially poker players, believe it's to be free means to not have any appointments, to not have any plans for the day, just be flying like a bird. I think that's horror to me, because other people will determine what you do with your time. Yeah, and so that is my framework. I'm trying to get everybody hooked on the idea of like having a schedule, at least a minimal one, and like deciding how you want to spend your time and being less chaotic about it, being less unintentional about it. And from that stems big freedom, in my opinion, and like a lot of like increased productivity, and coming from that as a consequence, a lot more freedom to like also spend your leisure time.
Yeah, I know you're someone that is organized, productive, disciplined. One thing I'll definitely say about you is that you're very reliable, and I see that as a really, really highly sought after value or trait, because most people simply aren't reliable. You ask somebody to do something and they either say yes and they don't do it, or they don't really do it, and people can be very unorganized, and then you can't really trust that. It's frustrating, and it doesn't really work so much. But that reliability is really, really powerful. And I know you're great with your time and also really conscious with it. So do you have a particular planning method or a way that you set your schedule up to give yourself that framework? What does that look like, and how do you help people with that? I'm sure there's a lot of people that will be thinking, how do I prioritize? How do I set my schedule? It's a big problem for a lot of people.
Yeah. So the method I'm still using now for 4 years or something is something I learned from one of my big mentors, James Whitted. You had him on an episode a few months ago. And James created a mindset course, and in there he just had a very simple Excel sheet for planning. It's really not looking nicely or anything. It's not hyper functional. It's not multi-device or anything. So it's the perfect tool for me, because I'm the grandpa of tech. Okay, I'm resisting every kind of tech. I just want to be offline. So Funny enough, the tool was created by some German client of James or something. So of course it was created by a German. It's just an Excel sheet. You basically have two tabs in there. It's a tracking tab and a schedule tab. And what I tell every new client as well who wants to get into improving time management, for the first week, just track your time. And we do it typically in half an hour intervals, but it can be 1 hour intervals as well. And you just track what's going on in your life right now. And you don't judge yourself. You just take it in. You don't try to make it look better than it is in reality. You're just open and honest about it. And after this week, you already have great insights into your level of organization so far. And some guys have a very the busier you get, the more people rely on you, the more responsibility you have, etc. People tend to have a solid schedule already in most cases, at least in industries where you need to rely on that. You need to have that skill, like if you meet with other people, etc. What we then can do is, how I apply it then is, starting in the second week, I try to map out like a basic schedule. And I usually start with waking up time, going to bed time, and then maybe one thing in between. Could be playing your poker session, could be doing your main work block, your most important meeting, or something like your biggest habit, like going to the gym, some family time, any of these items. And you just start with those three: waking up, going to bed, and like gym, let's say. And you schedule these things. You try to get more consistent with them and make them fit your needs, what you want to accomplish in life, where you want to go, what your goals are. And over time, you fit in more and more of these items that make up your day. And at the end, you arrive at a point where you schedule your whole day consistently. And the way I do it, there are different methods about it as well. I do it like always the evening before, at latest. I map out my following day. And usually I have some things that are very constant, like recurring clients, for example, these things. And you can basically keep them the same, or you need to keep them the same week by week. But some things are shifting, and then you make these final adjustments the evening before. And that is very important, because some people do it the morning of the same day, and that is like that makes them prone to compromise with their schedule and make last minute changes. And I don't feel like this or that. That's not recommended. I would do it the evening before with a clear mind, and then trying to follow through. Obviously, sometimes you need to be flexible. Some things might change unexpectedly. You are a father, so obviously more flexibility is required potentially. But overall, that's how I do it. Day by day, the night before, I do it for the following day. And then that's about it. The final piece would be once a week, typically on Mondays, I do a weekly review where I just look at the last week, just compare my scheduled time to my track time, and try to draw any conclusions, learn anything, make adjustments for the following time, and do some journaling alongside. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. I love it. It's so simple. I'm a big fan of simplicity, because I think especially if you start off with things that are complicated, it puts too many roadblocks in the way for people to really get going. There's too much friction there. It can also be overwhelming, and it's difficult to implement. If it's simple, you're just going to follow the process. You can give it a try. You can get used to it, and then ultimately you can make it more specific or complex over time if you want to get more specific with each of the areas. You might have your exercise, and initially you just schedule it, and then you get more specific about what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, and adding that in and changing it around a bit more. So that's great. And so you do the evening before, because in the morning, it might be more feelings based. It might be, you're more prone to distractions too. Do you do it at the end of your work day, or do you do it before you go to bed? Is there an optimal time that you've found?
It tends to shift. I would definitely say after you've wrapped up your work for the day. And I wouldn't do it necessarily too closely before bed, because then it might be disturbing again, or waking you up a little bit. So there's this, maybe that's also something useful to share for the audience. It's something I believe I learned from another mentor of mine, Joe Marcoux, a sales coach from Canada, and he calls it, and it's common knowledge by now, I guess, the 10-3-2-1 rule, he calls it. So 10 hours before bed or before sleep, no caffeine. 3 hours before bed, No food 2 hours before bed, no work in 1 hour before bed, no screens, no electrical devices, etc. And so I would do it maybe like ideally something like 2 hours before bed, and definitely 1 hour before bed, so you avoid screens afterwards.
Yeah, I think I've heard. I think I've heard that from another expert as well. That 10-3-2-1, and yeah, it's a really good structure for looking at what you're going to do when. I also think there's some merit to not doing not planning it before bed or before you go to sleep, because ultimately you just might not do it or you're too tired at that point.
Yeah.
I often find when I try and do things in the evening, I'll say I'll get round to it and then I'm too tired and it doesn't happen. So for me, if it's going to be exercise or scheduling, I do it earlier in the day and then I know that it's going to get done. The earlier in the day, the more likely it is to get done. And then later things I do as a bonus. So if I'm going to go for a run, it's because I feel like an extra run in the evening and I'm just feeling like I want to go out, or, I might want to do a review or something else later, then I'll do that. But I don't schedule it in so much because I know that I'm going to be perhaps tired, or the schedule moves around a lot as well. And in that weekly review, is there anything that you do that's been helpful for you in the review? Do you review like schedule, or is it more about skill set or performance or anything else as well?
It's a combination. So the first segment is just looking at the hours, basically how I spent them. If there are major discrepancies between what I planned and what I actually end up doing. I would like to add there, don't stress about like being 100%. That's a mistake I made within the years. That was really not great, because you end up stressing, and it's not significant if you have a little discrepancy. I would follow the Pareto principle there. Like if you get 80% of the benefits anyways if you like put in 20% of the work. So you don't need to like be super dead on with every single hour or something. So I look for that. And that was tough for me at times. You also don't want to have too much of a discrepancy, obviously, because then why do you schedule? Why do you track your time if you don't bother about it at all? So that's the first segment, checking that. And like often you can already see patterns. So for example, if my sleep was shortened in a particular night, usually I end up doing less work the following day or wake up later, and all these kind of things. You can find patterns in your life that would otherwise just be invisible, because if we don't put it on paper, we usually just forget about things within 24 hours at latest. So like all this kind of, I'm not a big fan of like over tracking, like the amount of data that is collected nowadays by some people voluntarily, by just like some watches or whatever, is a bit frightening to me as well. But I see value in some, at least some of these things. So, but I believe you can mostly just rely on stuff you can put on paper with a pen. You don't need to measure it too exactly, because then you can stress about that again as well. So, but what's clear is if you track it in some way, you get much more information, and you can work with this information, and you can improve your life, and you can do it just yourself. You don't even need necessarily a doctor or some external person for it. But you can find your own conclusions. That's amazing. So that's part one, and part two would be then like some kind of journaling for the weekly scope. So I do journaling on a daily basis anyways, but this weekly journaling is some questions that are just designed to evaluate my week, figure out like what went well, what went bad, like what affected my energy, what was standing out, what was a big win, these type of questions roughly.
Yeah, I think they're really important questions to ask, because we can miss them, especially the wins. This is a big one. We don't default look for what we're doing well, and then we can miss out on doing more of that, for one, and also having that sense of achievement, of really acknowledging what we've done. We can quite often play down our strengths or accomplishments, or just miss them if we don't look at them. So that measurement of feedback is really important. It's also great for a self-correcting mechanism. I know what I liked about this process that you were talking about is that week one you're just tracking your time. Well, we just aren't aware of where we spend our time. So in that tracking process, just doing that, I can imagine, is a really useful exercise, because once you see where you're spending your time, there's part of us that will auto-correct. So it's going to know, right, deep down, I don't want that. That's not what I really want. I just didn't know I was doing it. It's the same with finances and all sorts of different areas of our lives. And people are often afraid to look because they don't want that bad news, for example, like doing it from a place of non-judgment is not so much a problem. The tracking tab in the schedule, what are the main things that you track when it comes to schedule? Is that tracking the, what time you're going to bed and how many times you exercise, or there are specific things to look out for there that are helpful?
Yeah, so the again, it's very simple, the tool. You can just set up categories in whatever way you like it. And obviously, as I changed from being a poker player to being a poker mindset coach, my categories changed a little bit. So it's very like up to your needs. And I would always again recommend keep the categories simple. It doesn't need to. If you have a certain job, you don't need to split up the job into 5 different categories. It can just be work, let's say. Yeah. Then I have items like morning routine, evening routine, exercising, time with my partner, voluntary work, preparing food, free time, these kind of things. It's 10 to 15 items, and that could already be very well simplified. That's it. That's what I'm tracking, and I always try to like kind of identify what was the main theme of every half an hour block. There might be some overlapping, and I had times where I definitely stressed about these things. And like try to be perfectionist, but that's not the point. It's just a rough idea.
Yeah, I think that's great, and a real important point there about like the perfectionism is, when we start, if we try and do everything perfectly straight off the bat, and you want to track everything and you want to schedule every minute and get it all sorted and get it all right, it's really overwhelming, and it's also really difficult to implement, if not impossible as well. So I'm writing a whole book on this at the moment of how to just get in there and start things and not have to do everything perfectly, get it right and do all of it straight away, but just get in there, because once you start doing a few things simply, then you can over time expand on them and improve and develop. And if you're tracking it as well, you can figure out what the best way is to do it. But it's just that not having to do everything perfectly straight away, just giving ourselves permission for that is really, really useful. So we've been working together over the past 12 months, and we've not been working specifically on scheduling, but other areas. What's shifted for you personally in that time since we've been working together?
I would like to make one more comment for the scheduling thing, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
To just wrap it up, because like for me, one of the biggest takeaways was actually to realize it's not about these time blocks, but it's about what happens between activities. So I truly understand nowadays how important transition time is and taking breaks. And I didn't realize that before. I was planning like, okay, I end my poker session at this time, and like right the next minute I will do another activity, and I will be having the right mindset, the right energy, and all of this. And this was really like illuminating to see, hey, you can't squeeze everything into your time. You need to have breaks. You need to have transitions. That was really helpful.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember coming across the shutdown ritual in the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, where he talks about leaving work at work. You finish, and he has a shutdown ritual where he just closes the laptop and says shutdown complete, like a bit of a silly thing, but it closes things off. And you can have that where you take an item of clothing off. You might have a watch, you take the watch off, or you do something that then you close off and you leave it there. For me, I'll do a 5-minute meditation. I know at the end of that I'll have checked all the emails and done everything I need to do, and then I close the door, leave the office, and then I go into the house and with the family, and that's a shutdown. But yeah, since then I've become aware of these transitions and how important they are. We're playing different roles in different situations. So you've got the coaching role, then a parent role, then a friend role, and each different context requires a different version of you. And if we're bringing one version of us to the next, or there's crossover, or we're still thinking about it, it can be quite disruptive. So I read in Elliot Rowe's book about these transitions. He talks a lot about that and the importance of that, of having like that time in between each. I'm seeing this in so many different places of There was a parenting book I read, and they talked about that. When you finish work and you're coming in to be with your children, having a transition where you step into dad mode or mum mode before you get in there, because otherwise you're still thinking about work and you're not present. And that lag time can be really disruptive, and also it creates a lot of anxiety and stress and tension that's unnecessary. We can just close things off, close the loops, or just take that time to transition between, or just be even conscious and present of it as well. Can make a real big difference.
100%.
Great. So yeah, tell me about what are some of the shifts that you've experienced over this last year?
It's been plenty, and that's why it's hard to summarize. But I will start with the beginning, because I remember the first session that we had together. Maybe it was the discovery call or the first real session. Then I said something like, "John, I'm mainly looking to improve as a coach." I was kind of putting my guards up in the very first session, and said like, this is professional, okay? I want to be a better coach. I want to learn your techniques and everything. And I was fully in the mindset of like, I just need to have more tools. If I have a bigger toolbox, I will smash it, and like people will make even bigger progress, and that's what I need to learn. And on the second session already, I started tearing down this wall, and you helped me big time with it. And I realized that it's much more about like just developing as a person. And if I develop as a person, I will naturally be a much better coach as well. And I will pick up some techniques alongside because you're using them with me. But for the most part, it's about embracing getting coached, I would say, embracing being vulnerable. And yeah, that was the overall theme of the whole like last 12 months. And some of the specifics that stand out for me, like the first book you recommended to me was Straight Line Leadership. And this, yeah, it hit like a bomb. Like this was amazing. One of the key moments from the book for me that I keep as a mantra today as well is turn knowledge into action. And this is something that really stood out with your coaching method that I didn't do enough before in my own coaching. That was always pinning people down to take action, not end at the talking, not end with acknowledging things and like having empathy and like connecting with each other. That's all important. That's all needed to build trust and everything. But ultimately, if you want to make long-lasting changes, it needs to be about action taking and like changing the course of the actions that people take, changing how they spend their time. So that's why the scheduling is so important. We don't want to end up like having the exact same schedule on like first day of the coaching and then 1 or 2 or 3 years later. We want to make shifts and like bring these people closer to what they want to get done in life, the person they want to be, etc. Turning knowledge into action, huge thing. And like practically I took from that to always have at least one action item at the end of each session with each client. And that is really beneficial. That is something that you also do pretty thoroughly, I would say. And maybe that's before you then reply. That's what really kills me many sessions and makes it very like enjoyable, but also very challenging. Is the scope of like action items that you present and like suggest. I can always say no, of course, but I end up saying almost always yes because it's intriguing. Like especially from the last session, like these challenges, I'm really afraid to get on the street and get going with these things. But it is the right path. Mm-hmm. That is amazing to challenge someone, to poke someone, but always remain in a realm of like having a trustful relationship, feeling comfortable, feeling capable of being vulnerable, but then getting challenged as well and like growing, not holding still, not being comfortable with what we have accomplished so far already, but like trying to take the next step and the next step.
Yeah, I think, for me, action's really important because ultimately we can sit there and talk about things and have great insights. But if we're not applying them in between sessions and we're not putting them out into the world, nothing really changes. And that can be a real shame for people because they're really understanding things or they're really learning, but then they're just not actually taking that out into the world and getting the benefits of it. And that's what we want. We want to get the benefits of these changes, whether it's a changed schedule or a changed habit or belief. You want to get out there and get what comes from that, because that's where we feel alive and that's where we get transformations. And like I said, one of your things that that I love about you is how you're willing to take action, you're open, but you're reliable. So many of our sessions, we'll spend the first half of the session talking about the actions you took in the last week, because so many things have happened and so much has changed. When actions aren't taken, there's nothing there to talk about. There's not those changes in perspective or new challenges to embrace or insights to look at, because a lot of the time insight comes after action. So then we've got loads to take a look at, which is great. One of the things, and the Straight Line Leadership book, there's so many distinctions in that book. I'm always sending it to clients and sending it to people to just draw a line between two options. And if you start taking options, just understanding that, what some things can look the same. If we take the distinction of kindness versus being nice, on the surface it would appear very similar. I know the entrepreneur Gary Vee talks a lot about being nice, and he's trying to promote niceness everywhere. And I love what he's doing with that. But for me, there's a language shift, because I see the distinction of being nice versus being kind. And, nice is telling somebody what they want to hear, and kind is telling somebody the truth. And it's very, very different. But on the surface, they can appear quite similar. And there's lots of these distinctions. And when we understand them, it can make things look very different. And when we start applying them in our life, it can also then give us those changes. One of the things that you took on and you embraced actually over this past year, it was volunteering and going out and giving your time to others. Like, what's that been like for you, and what's that? What have you experienced as a result of that?
Yeah, this has been one of the most amazing changes that I made to my life, I would say. And it's just about 2 hours a week. I volunteer in you could say, a refugee shelter, and it is every single week. It's challenging to go there because I know it's optional. I know I'm just volunteering. I know I'm not earning money with this or whatever. I don't need to do this, right? No one forces me. So I always have this, initially I have this little bit of like, should I go? Should I do some other work instead, or maybe have some free time? But every single time, once I'm done with these 2 hours, I feel so proud and so happy, and I enriched the lives of people, and I just showed people there is goodness in the world, so to speak, and they showed it to me as well. And as a result, for example, I started learning Arabic now, like half a year ago or something. I'm a very poor Arabic speaker, but I'm practicing every single day, and I'm picking up things every time I go there. They are really eager to teach me, and I can teach them some German, and it goes both ways. And my table tennis game improved a lot, and so it's an amazing 2 hours of my week where I remind myself that I'm not alone in the world, that you don't need to get paid every time you do something good for people. Quite the opposite. It's very important to have, if you can afford it. I mean, I'm not talking about the people who are really struggling to make a living, but I'm talking about privileged people like me, you, and many of the audience probably. It's important that we carve out this time to just serve others. And like this serving, like, stuck with me. You shared a story with me about like when you did voluntary work in your life, and like a key word was serving, and that is something that I really live with just 2 hours a week, and maybe in the future more. And I'm looking for other ways as well, but this has been a key lesson, like serve, and and it's actually insane how much you get back, even though that is not my intention, but it is a result, and I can't neglect it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I noticed when I volunteered. I first off went in from one kind of angle, and then the more I was volunteering, I realised that I was getting so much back from it myself. Anything we're ultimately doing, we're doing it because we choose to do it, whether that's consciously or not. I know that you said the battle can be that it's optional, right? You don't have to go. You're giving up your time, you're giving up your energy, and going there. Have you noticed it's changed anything about your understanding of time, or how you hold time, like what your relationship's like with time since you've been volunteering?
Yeah, for sure, because I'm making this time, and many weeks I feel like I could use it in different ways. It would relieve some of the pressure, like getting some work done in these 2 hours or something. But no, I'm carving out this time, and it is well spent time. And obviously it's, as you said, I'm a very organized person, very straightforward, always having a mission in the other areas of my life. And when I'm there, it's usually, there's not a big mission, let's say. Like, yes, I'm trying to be a teacher for German there, but most people just, there's a lot of fluctuation, and most people just get to know me, and like they don't know that I'm trying to play this role of the teacher, right? So they just talk to me, and they are surprised when I have some books, like language books, and like, what are you doing? Like, we just want to have a chat, right? So I'm slowing down a little bit there as well. And it's not, I can never know what's happening there. That's also great, right? It's not, I know exactly I have client X at this time. This is the topics that we will discuss. No, I'm going there. I will be surprised. Like, who is there will always be different. Like, in what mood people are will be different. And I need to live with the unexpected.
And for context, tell us a bit about who you have been helping and how you help them.
You mean in this voluntary work or
Yeah,
with?
yeah, yeah, and the voluntary work.
Like it's people who like who are refugees who are coming to
Yeah,
Germany, and like some of them are here in like for many years. It's insane. Like it also was a reality check for me, and like made me realize how privileged I am. Just that I'm like, I have my passport, I have my ID, right? Like it's huge privilege. And like it's a range of like people who are like 18 to, let's say, 35, 40 or something. And yeah, it's I I get in touch with problems that I never had in my life, and I'm trying my best to assist. Often it's about like learning the language is a big issue as well, but just being in touch with people that usually on the street would never look at you. That's like important for the guys that I'm working with there. And it's yeah, all males, no females in this shelter. And um, yeah, it just means a lot to them to just have someone they can talk to, and like someone who's not trying to, I don't know, worst case, get them out of the country or something, right? Um,
yeah, yeah.
I can sense this like sympathy and like this the connection, and like how much it means.
Yeah, there's so much power in that giving. You know, you're not wanting anything back. You're not trying to get anything from them. You're not trying to sell them something. You're actually just showing up and giving your time, giving your energy, and trying to help them. And that goes a long, long way. And from the conversations we've had, I know it's already had a massive impact on the people that are there already. I think you mentioned one of the guys came along with you to do some martial arts with you.
Yeah.
An opportunity they didn't think they'd get before, and they were able to have that opportunity as well. So that's amazing. I know from what you do that you have a great deal of self-discipline. The way you spend your time, the way you do your habits, the fact that you're taking so much action as well is awesome. What do you think stops people from having that discipline, and what are some of the best ways to build self-discipline?
What stops them is they're conditioned in different ways. I think we're living in an age where it's the norm that you are inconsistent, that you're all over the place, that you have exploding amounts of options, and you don't need to commit to anything. I think that's kind of, yeah, I think that's the age we're living in, for at least for a certain, like in our countries and for privileged people again. Um, and then how do you get out of it? I think first people need clarity. That is what I want to accomplish, even if I don't end up working with someone as a client. When I schedule a discovery call, I call it, with people where we figure out if we are a fit and we can work well together or not. I try to let them, like with questionnaires and then on the call itself, I really want them to take an honest look at their living situation and like what's going on, honestly. What are the issues that they are facing right now, and maybe also a glimpse of how would a better world for them, a better life for them look like. And then, and usually what we end up seeing is a huge gap. And
Yeah.
that is obviously where we as coaches can jump in and like bridge the gap with them together.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because many people they want to be more disciplined in whatever it might be, and they're just doing meditation, or they're going to the gym, or they're changing a habit, and they might just be doing it and gain discipline. But if it's not taking them to where they want to go or getting them an outcome that's important to them, it kind of doesn't really matter as much. So that can not only be demotivating, but it can also end up to kind of wasting time and opportunity. So having that clarity really important, and sometimes I will ask people the question, what do you really want, or what would you love to have happen in 3 years' time? They can't answer it because they're just either not used to asking that question or being asked that question, what do you want, and thinking about it. They're just kind of going through the motions. I think that then leads back to what you mentioned about conditioning. We've just been conditioned to be to not taking action or not being disciplined, and ultimately anyone can train themselves to do it. It's just being able to see that and be open to that possibility as well, and be open to the possibility of change, which is really important. I know you've learned a lot about stoicism. You also mentioned when we spoke recently how stoicism's helped you to become more content. Tell me, or tell us a little bit about that.
I think in the space of poker mindset, I think there's something like a natural connection or affiliation between mindset work and like stoicism. Or maybe it's just my impression, but I always feel like when I read Jerry Tendler or when I read stuff from Elliot Rowe, I can sense some of this ancient wisdom is in there. Maybe I just made this bridge myself over the years. I'm not sure. So, like, for me, it all started like I got into meditation many years ago, and like breath work and journaling and reading self-development books and all these kind of things, and it quickly brought me in the direction of like stoicism. Marcus Aurelius first and foremost, and like everything that Ryan Holiday writes, I'm reading it all, and like he really made it popular to like take these ancient texts into the present time and like understand that this is alive. This is nothing that is dusty or anything. It's very practical philosophy, very applicable, very straightforward, not complicated. I also read like the famous German philosopher Immanuel Kant. I read some of the books in the original language necessarily because I am German, but like I read some of these books. They are just 200 years old, or let me think. Okay, a little bit more, like 250 years old, right? The Stoicist texts are 2,500 years old. Immanuel Kant is insane. Like no one can read it. If you want to kill all the fun for someone to read, give them Kritik der praktischen Vernunft, critique of the practical reason. Like it's the book that I like understood the least about. Like I read the full book from A to Z. I understood maybe 5% of the content. So like this is complicated. It's beautiful philosophy as well, like very helpful, like the foundation of human rights and everything is coming from this. But like if you contrast that to stoicism, it's like it's alive, it's practical, it's about everyday lives. You can apply it right away, and you always find something that is somewhat weirdly the perfect fit for what you're experiencing right now. So it's very down to earth, let's say. And yeah, like this is, it worked its magic over the years. I'm getting more and more into it. I'm really intrigued to read some of the original texts in time, or already did that. And by original, I don't mean ancient Greek texts, the translations, of course, but like the original works. And yeah, it's fascinating. And I'm really eager to go deeper into it and share it with the world. Like this is a philosophy that I can be really proud about. And it's not like in school I was laughed about when I shared my passions about Immanuel Kant, but and I can understand them nowadays. But with Stoicism, no one laughs because people see how this is super, like this is real, like this is really like affects all of us.
Yeah, I looked into a little bit of Immanuel Kant's work when I was trying to answer the question, how do we know if we're doing the right thing or not? It was a question I always had for myself. How do I know? Am I doing the right thing? Morally, that was always a big question for me. And he provided some really great solutions. He talks about, the question that, well, if everybody was to do it, would that be a good thing for everyone? So if you're thinking about, well, I don't want to work and I'm just going to have fun for the rest of my life. Well, if everyone did that, how would that be a society you want to live in? Would that work? If everybody was to, you say, well, I want to lie about certain things. Well, if everyone was to lie about certain things, would that be a world that you want to live in? And these are really great questions. And then I went a little bit further and deeper behind morals and behind that, and got into like what's it like to really trust yourself to know what the right thing to do is and give yourself that permission. And that's a really powerful space to be in as well. But a lot of the Stoic ideas are really powerful. I studied Albert Ellis extremely closely, and I know we've had conversations about that. There's the ABC method of understanding beliefs, and the fact that there's the events and our beliefs, and then they determine our emotions and the consequences. And these simple understandings that have translated and come back thousands of years are not changed today. They're still very relevant, still practical and helpful. Really, really helpful. What were the key? Were there any key exercises or concepts that helped you with this, like developing a contentedness, like being more content? What helped you to get into that? And the reason why I ask is it's something everyone's seeking. I want to be content. I want to be peaceful. I want to be happy, and as if it's somewhere off in the future, but we can live in a contentment. And I'm curious how you've experienced that and created that.
It's again very hard to puzzle it all together. I think it is the summary of all these changes and actions I took over the years. But if I would try to pin it down, it would be through daily practice. I think that's what it takes. It's never a state that you accomplish at some point or anything. It's daily practice. And if I would pick a few highlights, it would be meditation first and foremost, every single day since 4 years or something, and always trying to further that practice as well and take it to the next level. That is like satisfying me deeply. Then it is daily journaling, reflecting on events, understanding how often, again, if you write it down, you see it clearly, how often events repeat themselves in lives. And like previously I would have put tremendous meaning to it, and oh my god, they looked the wrong way at me, and now my whole day is messed up or anything. And then understanding, no, it will always happen. It's always the same problem to me, just in different disguises. It's always like I don't know, my ego is hit a little bit, yeah. So meditation, journaling, and then for me it really helps to have daily contact with Stoic philosophy. I currently for the first time read the Daily Stoic, which is Ryan Holiday's like calendar with Stoicist wisdom. I already, like, this is typical me, I already announced it. I will just read this book over and over again for the rest of my life every single day, because I don't see a reason why not to. It's amazing. So I'm now in October or something, so I will soon be finished for the first time, and then I will just rinse and repeat, and it will be amazing. And like these kind of little daily activities that are working in this direction, like reflecting on my life and instilling little moments of contentment and like satisfaction about like what's going on. I think these would be 3 key practices for me.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that it's a daily practice. It's not just a place that you arrive. It's actually a place that you're coming from. It's a place that you're living in, and those doing the difficult things, the challenging things, and those habits consistently daily. That's what leads to a life of contentment and ultimately fulfillment as well. I think it's a really important point to look at. I've read The Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday, and I really, really enjoyed that, but there's a lot of his works that I haven't read yet. What did you want to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing. I feel like it's very important to mention that, and that is something that is very, I would say, out of the box in the poker world. Like, my clients are usually, so it's not a topic I mention in the first 3-6 months or something, but I always bring it up with them once we are working for a longer time, and that is. Like, especially in the poker world, it's a lot about acquiring wealth, and having a very like materialistic life, and like some people show off, but everybody needs to, like, you're measured by the money that you're making, especially in the poker world. I think it's generally a trend in Western societies that this is becoming more and more relevant. Not just what you do in your work, but especially what you earn doing the work. That's more and more important nowadays. And what really helps me with contentment is a quote that I learned from it's I believe German economist, and he like said something along the lines of it's not the rich person let me think about this so I get it straight. like not the person with a lot of wealth is rich, but the person that needs not a lot of wealth, that doesn't need a lot, right? So if you can live on few things materialistically and be happy, you are way more rich than a person who has it all. And that is something that makes me so happy, that takes out a lot of pressure and makes me so happy that I realize, yeah, of course I have some cravings. I sometimes think, what about having this or whatever? And I see other people around me having certain things, but it's so easy for me to detach myself from that and just understand that's all not required. That's all not what I will be truly needing, or what will be. No one will remember this. And even myself, I won't remember it after a few years or whatever. At latest, once I'm dead, no one will care about this. But like the person that I am, the impact that I have on other people, this matters a lot. This is this is way more impactful than money and richness and wealth and nice houses, cars, etc.
Yeah, it's that impact that ripples on, right? That you get to give to other people, that lasts forever. It reminds me of a line from the Tao Te Ching where he says, when the work is done, the master lays no claim to it, and that's why it lasts forever. You know, is willing to just let go, not have to take the claim and see how great it is or how great they are. They can let it go, and then that's what allows them to keep on that journey and keep moving in that direction. So you mentioned like Ryan Holiday, Immanuel Kant. What are some of the other mentors that you've had that have shaped your thinking and your journey?
Yeah, I would truly like. It's funny that you mentioned Immanuel Kant as a mentor, but probably he was my first mentor in life. I would maybe there was maybe some like in my hometown I had we had a like I was playing music and everything, and we had kind of a person in this let's say youth center that I was looking up to and that I learned a couple of skills from. Like he was a musician as well. He was a sound engineer. I like learned or taught myself to do sound engineering. That was probably somewhat like my first mentor in life. But then it was truly philosophy. It was Immanuel Kant. It was living by this credo of like a categorical imperative that you quoted loosely earlier. That was impactful. But I would say the real period where I started to have mentors was only within the last 5 years. And it was once I got into poker. Who would have thought that? No one would have ever thought that. My parents wouldn't they would listen to this, they wouldn't believe it. Once I got into gambling, that's when I started to have big mentors.
That's when your life turned around.
Yeah, truly it is. It was like that. Not because of poker necessarily, but because of what was enabled through it, I would say. It is a unique space where certain things become possible. And like what I like to, when I contemplate about my life, what I like to think about my current situation is that I am somewhat like a practical philosopher that can make a living based on that. Yes, you typically call it coach, yeah, but it is somewhat practical philosophy. You can apply wise things from the past or from the present, and you can give it to people, and that changes their lives. And that is, it is somewhat like what a guy like Socrates did in ancient Greek. Obviously, I'm a tiny figure in comparison to people like that, but it is what they could do. They did it because they had big wealth and they had slaves and whatever. And nowadays we find ways of just getting paid for the service. But it is insane to me. I would have never thought 10, 15 years ago, this could be my work in the future. This is how I could make a living. So that's amazing. But coming back to the mentors, I would mention 4 names within the last 4 or 5 years. First, when I got into poker, when I was a player and was taking it seriously, wanted to be a pro, I signed a staking deal with a Spin and Go stable from Germany, and my head coach was Alex Bildarian. He was also a client of James, and that's how I got in contact. But yeah, Alex was really great poker mind. Tried his best to teach me Spin and Goes. Let's see how much stuck with me, but he taught me not only poker but also a way of thinking and how what to focus on. One famous line from him was that we always need to focus on the fishes. We always need to focus on the fun players instead of the other pros at the tables, because the other pros we don't make money from. We just try to impress them. We try to be look cool and be good poker players, but we make the money from the fishes. So he turned me that taught me how to like shift my focus on what really matters and how to kind of let like fade out the distractions. Yeah, that was very important. And I'm still in contact with Alex to this day. He's still doing Spin and Go content, and like he has a new business model. And I'm really happy where he's going, and he was very happy to hear how it went for me, even though it wasn't as a poker pro. That's the one, like the first guy who jump started the whole thing. Then the second one, that's probably the most significant mentor I had. That's James Whitted. He gave me an opportunity to at first work as his assistant, I would say, but I showed big interest in mindset coaching. I was a student of him before, and he picked up on that quickly, and then he kind of trained me to become a mindset coach. And that was very exciting and very like not how you train for a job in Germany typically, not at all. So he taught me great deals about mindset. His course was the probably the biggest transformation I ever had in my life within just 3-4 months. And then over the years we built another business, or like he built another business afterwards. I was a big part of it, and James has been very influential on my life in the last 5 years.
Was there anything that you really remember sticks out for you about the course? Was there a particular tool that you learned or an insight you had that sparked a change for you?
Yeah, like we talked earlier about scheduling, and the tool
Sure.
that I'm using there, it is from this course. I'm probably the biggest user of this tool ever, lifetime. So this was super impactful. And then I got a proper intro to meditation through the course. He had a couple of guided meditations in there, and I did them a lot in the first few years. And then later on, I shifted to silent meditation. I had some meditation experience before in my life, but it was only through James that it really kickstarted, and I really got on a like daily practice. And
Yeah.
that's probably also hugely impactful. And then overall, like James is insanely creative. Sometimes to his detriment. Like that's why he brought me on. That's how we really work together really well, because I'm this organized person, this like putting things like keeping things in order, let's say, and he is always having the next idea, always ready to jump onto the next project, and being really a driving force when it comes to innovation. I think we are like a good couple in that sense, and yeah, that answers the question, right?
Yeah, and you know, that's the thing. Creativity it's messy and it's experimental and it's uncomfortable and it requires going in lots of different directions. And when you can blend that with some structure and some stability and a framework, it can be really powerful. So you often find creative and process people come together quite well to be able to create some useful stuff, or they work well together in teams. I've noticed in a lot of businesses where people get on that way because you bring so much that the other person can benefit from.
Yeah, and it like what is so special about James is that he gave me space, I would say, as a mentor. Because obviously in the beginning it was like a huge discrepancy. He knew so much, he was so knowledgeable about the whole space. But I think I quickly caught up, and I learned a ton of things in quick time. And then he gave me the space to really embrace that and like find my own role in the organization and in the business, and like use my skills and not be like, I am happy to be second row. Always, yeah, I want to be second row, but I got like, he made the space for this to be like comfortably in second row, and that is really like, yeah, that takes a lot to not only teach someone, but then like let them have the space to embrace the teachings, let's say. If that makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Two more mentors if
Yeah,
you
go for it.
want to. Yeah. Third mentor was someone I then, like, it all rippled down, like from Alex to James, then from James to Joe Maku, I mentioned him earlier,
Yeah.
sales coach from Canada. Joe, like I got onto Joe's sales training because James was one of the first clients of Joe, and James wanted to learn all about like sales and like to promote his course and everything. And then I was the guy who kind of took over and like learned all these things, because I was then handling the sales calls for the most part. And I learned a lot about sales for sure in these 2 years with Joe, but he is really a figure. Like I really recommend everybody who is remotely close to the business world or just if into self-development, I really recommend to checking out Joe Marcoux, um, because he is inspirational. Like he's a great salesperson, but he's a great human being. Yeah, even better human being. And I learned so much that I'm not doing sales anymore for the most part nowadays. I have a sales conversation maybe once a quarter or something. Yeah. Mostly people are trying to sell something to me nowadays, I would say.
You
So
know what they're up to.
yeah, I know what they're up to, and I like, but this whole process, this whole framework, it stuck with me, and I can apply to my relationships. And like the number one takeaway, and I really want to give to your audience is, it's a two-step process. It's acknowledgement, ask a question. So whenever you enter a conversation, especially if it's remotely close to sales or whatever, always like lean into the person. Yeah, like listen closely. Yeah, what are they trying to say, and then acknowledge them as a person. Acknowledge what they are saying, and only then ask a question, and like try to dig deeper, understand better or whatever. And like this works really well because people are not used to that. Usually, conversations go like, I say this, you say this, and we smash our heads together. But if you let the other person know that they are heard and then even ask them something and try to get a better understanding, it works magic. And this is something that I really that benefited me so much for coaching, to having this approach. And then Joe is the man for, like, he has all sorts of acronyms and like cool metaphors and quotes. And like, for example, if intelligence if emotions go up, intelligence goes down. That's something that he always says, right?
Yeah.
So we need to keep our cool. Like if we get heated up, like we won't make smart decisions or like say smart things. So yeah, I did weekly training sessions with Joe for like 2 years, and like it was like a sparring. Yeah, you practice sales objections, and you practice your sales pitch or whatever, these kind of things, and you always got feedback. And it was not just about what was said, but a lot about like tone of voice, like body language. Yeah, I learned so much about these things from him. Yeah, it's a huge gift. I'm still, even though I'm not working with him anymore, I'm recommending him at every opportunity, reading his newsletter every single day, and like still picking up the golden nuggets left and right, and yeah, staying very connected. Nowadays I'm even teaching, like a friend of mine, I'm kind of giving, and his team, I'm giving sales coaching on the side as a side gig.
Yeah.
And it's possible because of these 2 years. It's yeah, I learned skills for lifetime. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think like having things be memorable is really important because then you can utilize them a lot. You know, if it comes in, it goes out, then 6 months down the line, you're like, what did they say or what did I learn? But when you've really got that stuck in your head, it's a sign that you've really learned it and mastered it. And it sounds like you really got drilled in practicing things as well, which is also really important. It's that action taking, right? We can learn a whole bunch of stuff, but if we're not actioning it and getting feedback on that and updating that, we're not going to get the most out of it as well. And yeah, I like the approach. I like the two-step process, that acknowledging someone, making sure they're heard, and then inquiring, then asking a question. Because ultimately with sales, it's not about trying to make somebody have something. It's finding out what they want, and if it's a good fit, and if it's the case, then there's not really any sales that needs to be done. It's more just showing them what's there and finding out if it's right for them. So yeah, that sounds awesome. And yeah, so that's 3 mentors. So
Fourth one is
yeah.
sitting in front of me. That's starting coaching a year ago was long overdue, was super important, and I finally did it with you because James recommended you. Maybe you guys had the podcast episode before that even, or you got in contact before that for sure. And then James recommended it to me. I was looking to get a coach myself for longer than that, always playing with the idea. And then I finally took a leap of faith, just got it on its way, and immediately in the very like discovery call, I felt like, yep, it's clicking. This is what I need. This is what I want. And this is super important. I'm such a fool in retrospect that I didn't do this earlier, that I waited for 3-4 years before I got a coach myself, because I am a coach. I believe in the value of what I offer. So why should I not have a coach myself and like get all the benefits that I want to give to other people? And yeah, we talked about it, right? It's been challenging over these 12 months, but always still comfortable, but yeah, like out of the comfort zone, but still comfortable. Yeah, I would call it like this. And I like you taught me like the book recommendations have been stellar, and like I wrote book summaries about most of them. Straight Line Leadership was my first book summary, for example. And like then all these tools, but more important than the object, let's say that or like the books and the concepts that I learned from you was to rely more on my intuition, to be comfortable with just being somewhere, just bringing whatever I have at this very time of my life, and it will be annoying, it will be sufficient, it will be enough. I can handle things even if I haven't mapped them out or planned for it or prepared myself perfectly. Just being there, relying on all the skills that I already have, and just being fine with it and rolling and cruising, and yeah, I'm never disappointed. I'm like when I'm in this stance, I'm never failing or anything. It's never happening. People are always happy, and yeah, I have good conversations with people, and we take a step forward.
Yeah, I love it. And look, I want to acknowledge you for having that openness to dive in and do the work and commit to yourself as well. Not many people are willing to take that step. I connected with James a couple of years ago. I knew he was a really experienced mindset coach, and I can't remember if I might have reached out to him and we connected and jumped on a call and just really got on really well and shared loads. We had so many different, so many similar kind of parts of our journey and learning and understanding. So we really connected over that. And then I remember when he put us in touch and we first had a conversation, and yeah, you were really keen to learn some tools and techniques and develop your skills. And I said, look, I'm willing to offer you everything I have, but if you're open to looking deeper, there might be something underneath that. And that's where, you're now seeing how much you have to offer, what your unique talents and skills are, and then how many tools. I remember we had a session, we looked at the tools that you've already got, and it was absolutely expansive. So just to have more tools is amazing, and you'll always keep getting them, but really tapping into your own greatness, you're able to then have access to all of that and really make the most of it. But you've jumped in with both feet and really embraced the process, and it's great to see, and it's it's fun for me as well as a coach to see you flourishing as well. What advice would you give to someone else? I know you said like for you it's like you wish you'd done it 3 years earlier, and I know this for me when I hired my first coach, and I'd been sat around like twiddling my thumbs for 6 months, and then finally kind of got in, and then I was accountable and uncomfortable and took all the steps, and why didn't I do that earlier? What advice would you give to somebody who's either wanting to make changes or thinking about coaching? What advice would you give to them?
I would say if you're thinking about changes, you can take a lot of directions. But if it's about like you're narrowing it down, you're considering a coach. Okay, let's take that as the example. I would really recommend to like tap into your network first of all. And just ask around the people that you trust and know already if they have any experiences, and if they could recommend anybody. Because what I realized in these like 4 or 5 years now is the value of a network is insane. Like when people can be your filter, you get so much value out of it. Like if someone, you don't need to read 100 books, even if you're a speed reader, but you can just get the best 10 recommended from your closest friends and coworkers, etc., family. That's so much added value. And so I would recommend like first asking in your circle, like who has experience with coaching, like who could recommend me someone. And then I wouldn't maybe check them out on social media or whatever, but for the most importantly, get in contact. And then I think a good coach will not start working with you easily. I think there will be, and that's what I needed to learn and establish over the years as well. There needs to be let's say a barrier. Barrier is the wrong term maybe, but you need to qualify for coaching. Not everybody, just because you have money or whatever, you're not ready for coaching. You need to bring like the necessities. You need to be open to it. You need to put in work. You need to have make time for it. Everybody has the time, but you need to make it as well. And so a good coach won't just sign you as quickly as possible to make a quick buck, but they will really check you out and make sure that it's also a good fit between the two of you, and not jump into it right away. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. That coaching it's a relationship. You're a partnership, So when we work together, it's I'm there to support you as a team. It's not there's no kind of hierarchy in it. It's you're coming together to collaborate to create something, but it's dedicated towards a coachee and it's a relationship. So if you don't click with somebody, then it might not work. And the other part as well, I had a piece of advice from a past coach of mine, Alex, and he said, can I offer you a piece of advice with the coaching? Because I was being coached by somebody who he'd been coached by. And I'm like, sure. He said, just be the best client you can possibly be. Because the better we are as a client, it's like being the best student we can be, right? If you're the best student, you go into the class, you can learn the most. Well, coaching's about developing ourselves. If we're willing to be the best student or the best client and we go in, we're just going to get so much out of it. But if we go in like, well, they better teach me something and this better be good and I hope they're going to give me stuff, then we're kind of that waiting for somebody else to do something. And that's the thing about coaching is you get out of it what you put into it. And if you're fortunate enough to work with a great coach and you're willing to show up and be a great student, you'll get so much out of it. And you can keep expanding that as much as you want. And for yourself, you show up as a really powerful and open client, and so you get the most out of the work that we're doing, and that's why we have so much to talk about. And there's so many actions that you're taking, which I love to see.
Actually,
Yeah.
I like your advice way more than mine. I think that is way more important. That what you bring to the conversation as a coach person, and like how I see coaching is it's just an accelerator. I think when it comes to the information that is presented in coaching, you can acquire all of this information somehow anyways. You can read books, whatever, do some online courses, I don't know. Or there are like always lower priced options, to say the least. Yeah, that's always possible. But what coaching does in an ideal case is speeding up the process tremendously. And it's not only because the coach can be a great coach or needs to be a great coach, but like you said, what the coach person brings to the conversation and how ready they are, and then it can really click and they can really speed through it, and you can really time collapse.
Yeah, and this is something I'll add is a coach can only take a client as far as they've gone themselves, because the further you go as a coach, you've gone past your own blocks, your own limitations, your own fears. You're expanded. So when somebody comes to you and they say, I want to earn this much or I want to have this relationship, you're like, great, okay, cool. Someone who's not gone to those depths, they might be questioning, well, why do you want that? Or maybe that's not possible. Then they're not going to have seen it and been there before. They might not push you as far as you could go. So if you've got someone who's walked the path, then that's really helpful. And the other element is, just showing up and how you show up as a client. And this is why I said about yourself earlier, is your reliability. You'll show up, you'll have prepared for the session, you know what you want to get out of it, you've got a whole bunch of questions, you're taking the actions. When you bring all of that in, look at what's there already. There's so much there, and then you get to take that away versus someone who comes on, I don't really know, I'm not really sure or whatever. And it's like, it's okay to not be sure, that's something we can work on, but then once you start getting prepared, journaling afterwards, taking the actions in between, boom, like the magic happens and it's amazing. Yourself as a coach, just tell us a little bit about who you work with and how you help them.
So currently it's very specific. I basically only work with poker players, and most of them are from our PLO5 team that James, Ryan Hall and I created together, Poker Spirit. So it's kind of in-house clients, you could say. But yeah, all poker players, and it's ranging from mid-stakes to high-stakes players, I would say. I have a few clients from outside of Poker Spirit, but I got plenty to do. I'm very well connected with these guys. They know my skill set very well, and so that's working out perfectly. For the future, I can see myself not only working with poker players, but just what we could call high performance coaching. I'm ready for that. I'm open to that, and for now, I feel happy in my niche. Let's see what the future brings. And how do I work with them? It's typically weekly meetings or every other week, and paired with accountability messages. Let's say, like we have a Telegram chat together, and then I usually try to get them on like daily accountability messages to make sure that they action whatever we discuss, right? And yeah, in the one-on-one time, we like what we just said, right? Like the ideal client comes very well prepared, knows exactly what they want to get out of the conversation, and they just want to have my support with this, my insights as well. Yes, but that's a term that I learned from you and really took in, co-creation, right? You get on a call together and you create something that neither one of the individuals would have seen before, could have done before, or like on their own. So yeah, we do this, and then typically, like, I have a pretty high retention rate with my clients. I'm very proud about that and pleased with that. So usually I have close to no fluctuation. I just keep working with people for years, and it's amazing. The relationship deepens and deepens, and at first you start with typical poker mindset related issues like not tilting, having a schedule, these kind of things, and over time it turns more into maybe what you could call life coaching, really looking into like what do we want to accomplish in life, what kind of person we want to be, and maybe also dealing with some past trauma, and really creating not only within poker but in the whole life, creating the life that they want to have.
Yeah, and I've seen the depth of your knowledge, your skill set, your tool set, the way that you show up as well. And I know how much you have to offer the people that you work with. So anyone who is, either a poker player or they're interested in coaching, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend Michael. For anyone that wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do so? Is it to?
I was foreseeing this question. I was already giggling prior to the call because there is no way to reach me. I'm
Do you know? I did. It's funny because we work together, but I did some googling and I was like, couldn't find you. I'm trying to find some extra background stuff as context for our conversation. But yeah, it's like you've really embraced the Cal Newport from Deep Work. He talks about make it difficult for people to reach you because then you've got more access to your time. We live in a world where anyone can inbox anybody, celebrities. You can get them on Instagram and send them a direct message. They might not read it, but you've got the opportunity. But so go on. Sorry, I cut you off.
All good. I'm second row. I'm proud about being second row, and like you said, you can't find anything about me. Maybe you could find some from my hometown newspaper articles from when I was a kid. Maybe that. But besides that, like usually people can reach me through our business, through @PokerSpirit on Instagram, and you will link it in the show notes, I'm sure.
Sure.
And afterwards we can discuss if we want to link my work email address. That would be the only way of reaching me directly. Or Discord, maybe Discord as well. So yeah, we can link that. But
sure.
Besides that, it's indirectly. People can reach
out. And people can always reach out to me. You can reach out to me on Instagram @theperceptioncoach or at my website theperceptioncoach.com and let me know if you want to put in touch with Michael or the team at Poker Spirit, and I can point you in their direction as well. I got one final question for you before I let you go for the day, and that's what advice would you give your 12-year-old self?
I would say we just had a session yesterday, and I think that clarified this question for me much more. So it's twofold advice. The first one, that's a topic that I'm still right now. You know it. We are working on this right now. I'm working. I want to be more courageous in everyday life, and the tip I would have liked to give my 12-year-old self would be, don't think too much about like the opinion of others. They usually won't think about you at all, and if they do, they don't usually think as badly about you as you do yourself. So don't be afraid about the opinions of others and just do your thing. You will be fine. You will be inspirational if you are brave and like courageous and you just do your thing. People will typically just be like impressed by that, but they won't like hit you because it's unbearable what you're having to say, especially not as a 12-year-old kid. That's the first. Second one would be seek allies and seek mentors. I found mentors pretty late in my life, I would say. And I was definitely not having a lot of allies in the earlier stages of my life. I was more like an outsider, I would say, even though I was always very am engaged and like active, let's say, and I was head boy of the school, I believe you say in English,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I was I
Wow.
was someone, so to speak, but I was always feeling like an outsider, always feeling like I'm
Mm,
fighting, like I'm a rebel, I'm fighting my lonely battle against the world. And if I would have understood way earlier that there are allies and I can find many allies and do the things together, and that's so much better, easier, more productive, that would have been amazing learning earlier in my life. And then seeking mentors. And not hesitating to reach out to people, ask for advice, and yeah, that's it.
yeah, it's so true. At that young age, when we're around 12 or so, it's like we feel like everyone's watching us, and you want to fit in, and you want to, make friends, etc. And it's the thing is, people really aren't paying that much attention. Things that happen in the day, they pass by, and then we move on, and people have forgotten. Everyone's so focused on themselves that they're not really paying that much attention to you. So to offer that kind of level of freedom, I think that's a great piece of advice. And yeah, on the mentors, you don't have to do it all by ourselves. There's people that have been there and done it that can shortcut the process. There's also people that can just help us see the things that we can't see. And having that network of people around you, getting around those people, it really rubs off on you, and you can create amazing things as a result of it as well. So thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your wisdom and your skills and tools and frameworks for success. I think people are going to get a lot of value out of this conversation. I've got a lot of notes to take away myself. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up today?
I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity. It felt very strange to be on a podcast because like I said, second row, right? I'm not considering
I've
myself to
pulled you
be
out of
as
the shadows and we've put you in the spotlight. So
yeah.
yeah,
It
very
feels good
privileged,
to
everyone.
to gather some experiences in that regard as well. And it was very exciting a conversation because I believe I never had a conversation like this. And I'm also excited to kind of maybe show it to some people from earlier stages of my life and like just it's very cool to see how a lot of things are melting together. And I think this conversation captured that really well. And it was like a little bit of a biography, let's say. Like I will definitely save this and like can be a document of my life to some degree. And that's great feeling. And I hope people will get something out of it. Maybe I don't know, get interested in meditation, start journaling, thinking more about how they spend their time. These kind of things, they really enriched my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited about what's next for you. And I wonder where you'll be looking back at this conversation in 5 to 10 years' time as well, and what that will look like for you. So, thanks again for joining me. Thank you, everybody, as well, for joining us for this podcast episode. I really appreciate you. Value your time and your attention. And if you made it this far in the episode, awesome work. Well done. Thanks again. I'll see you on the next episode, and big love.